I think this is recording. The little red light's on anyway. I've got the paper here, the photo of him in Prague, the one they keep printing. Strange thing, really. I mean, he's 58 now, gray, a beard on him. I've looked and looked, and I can't join that man to the boy who sat at our table. And the boy's face, well, I tried to bring it up on its own, and I couldn't. Not properly. 50 years, you know. Where's the actual boy out of it? That frightened me more than the photo did. Those 9 months go with me when I go. So, here it is. 50 years of Sundays we've talked around him. That was me. I started that. And I couldn't get through this with you in the room. I know I couldn't. So it's this machine. I can stop it when I need to. You can turn it off and come back. I won't say his name. It's in every paper in the country. It doesn't need me. You know the story. Everybody knows the story. We fostered a boy, 1975. 9 months. He pulled you out of the creek. It was in the paper, his photograph, and the CWA gave him $10 in an envelope. That was one of my stories that 20 years. Told it at the show, year in, year out. Told it at your wedding, God help me. The boy who saved our Lenny. And when the names started turning up in the business pages, oh, we had him, you know. 9 months. Lovely boy. And people would look at me different for a minute. Big noting. That's all it was. I knew it, and I liked it. But I'll tell you a funny thing. I never told anybody both halves on the same day. The having of him and the giving of him back. And near the end of every telling, I'd want the subject changed. And I was the one who'd brought him up. I'm not going to make out I always knew something. I didn't. I explained it all to myself at the time. Easy. Good explanations, too. They lasted 50 years. Then the trial, and the prosecutor said a thing, and it undid a knot I didn't know I'd tied. Took me from then till now to set down to it. So, 9 months, half a century ago, an old woman's memory. Count that against every word of this. I do. He came in the February. We'd done the papers because 2 was what we had and 3 was what I wanted, and after you there were no more coming. Kevin was 13, you were 6. The welfare woman sat at my table and told me what to expect. Boy out of 2 houses, you know. Broken nights, crying, and don't go in at every cry. Food going missing into the sleep out. They all do it, she said. Wet bed, likely as not. None of it came. Not one thing. He slept his 8 hours behind the partition your father built. Ate what was put in front of him. Never asked for more. Never left any. 9 months I never heard that child cry. Not once. I rang the welfare in the April and told her he'd settled beautifully. Proud as anything I was. I'd braced for a hard road and got handed the easiest child I ever raised. Took the credit, too. Well, you do. First day, he got out of the welfare car and shut the door behind him properly. Walked up and put his hand out to your father. Men shook Ray's hand all day. That went with being leading hand. A child never had. Then he says, you work on the per way. 8 years old. Ask him the difference between the old rail and the new rail going in past the bridge. Your father was on that front step 20 minutes. The tape out, bit of rail chalk, and every question the boy asked came out of the answer before it. Your father told me years after, men ask him questions all day. It was the job. Nobody had ever asked him a second one. I stood in the doorway and I thought, here's a good boy who's had a rotten trot, and we'll do this properly. And we did. I want that said. The television people talk like every foster house was a horror. Nothing was done to that boy under our roof. Nothing. His own bit of the sleep out, good food, shoes that fitted, a man who taught him to solder because he asked. And I'll say this now because you were 6 and you won't remember your father before. He'd run out of things to say to me years back. Bolo on the Friday. Paper up. Wireless on. That was the marriage. Then that autumn, he came inside talking. The shed he'd been meaning to build. His own father. Gave the bolo away without a word. There was a boy at home on Fridays wanting to know how things worked. I remember crying. Out of gratitude, just gratitude. That's the good. It was most of it. Now the rest. Then our neighbor, Mrs. Burl Dowd, over the fence, saying what he said. Wasn't it a terrible thing about his father? The pilot, the plane, 1970. Her Alan had been Air Force, and he'd asked the boy his particulars, and it all matched up. There was no pilot. The welfare had told me what there was. A mother's name, no father recorded. 2 years down the coast with a family, and the woman took crook. That's all there was. So I asked him, expecting the usual, mind, the red face, the floor, that half second where you watch a child deciding. I'd raised 2. I know what a child looks like around a lie. He said, Mrs. Dowd's son was in the Air Force. That was true, of course, but it was nothing to do with anything, and I didn't know what to say or what to make of it. Then I felt silly. He was a ward with nothing. Of course he'd invented a father, a grand one. Any child might. Doesn't cover why the lie was better made than a grown man could make it. But I didn't ask that then. Was just a little confused. I really didn't know what to make of it. The school rang in the June. A Tuesday, I've always said, though the copper was gone, and the copper was a Monday job. So, a teacher ringing down the roll. A child badly hurt in the classroom. Headmaster would speak at assembly. Counselor coming from town, have a quiet word with your own. Nobody was accused. Nobody was ever accused. He was on the lino with his reader when I came off the phone. You were beside him. Dead radio at your ear doing your broadcast. I asked him, were you there when it happened? And I swear on my own grave, he said it directly, looking right at me. I did it. Then the smile. You remember the one he had? We seen it in the papers years later. And he just said, I didn't see it. And I stood there knowing what he'd said, but my brain wouldn't let me properly believe it because that would mean something awful. But I did hear it, and you turned your broadcast up, and he laughed at you, and I stood there with the tea towel and said, all right, love, and went and got the washing in. I decided I'd misheard because the boy at school, well, he died. And the other boy got in real serious trouble. And I just couldn't make things match with the boy on my lino laughing at his sister. the wireless going, you making the static with your mouth. Easy thing to hear wrong in a kitchen full of noise. The counselor saw the class the week after. The boy along with the rest. Wards get looked at, the welfare woman had told me that. Report came through the school. Well-adjusted boy. Settled. Cooperative. A maturity beyond his years. I read that at the kitchen table and felt better. Couldn't have told you what about. Hadn't admitted feeling bad. And I tried not to think about it again. And mostly I didn't. That's the truth. I had to stop the machine for a while there. Now this is the part I've been going round since I started, and the part I'm sure of, which is more than I can say for the rest. He was never once unkind to you. Never once. Gave you his lollies out of his own bag, and he had nothing, mind. Walked you past the magpies 6 weeks that spring, on the outside, between you and the gums. They never touched either of you. I told half the district. A kind thing, kindly done. 50 years I've looked for the trick in it, can't find it. Either he was kind, or the kindness was for something, and I never caught it being for anything. And he answered for you. Somebody'd come to the house, and you were shy of new people. And he'd say, she's a bit shy of new people. And they'd smile and leave you be. And he was right. You didn't like crusts. He'd say that. You went funny of an afternoon when you were tired. He'd say that too. All true. All kind. In company. A good boy minding his little sister. 12 times, maybe, in 9 months. That's all it took. Because by the August, we were doing it without him. Your grandmother, your father, me, somebody'd ask you something, and there'd be that little gap where your answer should have gone. And I'd feel it, and I'd be right. And it felt like knowing my own child. That's all it felt like. You stopped singing in the bath somewhere in there. Couldn't give you the month. Not a thing you noticed starting. And your sheets started going through the machine of a morning. Doctor said say nothing to her. It goes as quick as it comes. So I said nothing. And you started saying you hated him. Nothing you could point to because there was nothing. And then one night, in your nightie, you said what I was trying hard not to. It doesn't feel like anything when he's nice to me. He's just not right. And I set you on the end of your bed, and I told you, that boy has had nobody and comes to us with nothing. And you have had all of us, and you will not talk about him like that in this house. You didn't cry. You got the radio and you sat on the back step with it. An hour, and you didn't do the broadcast. I've thought about that hour many times because you went real quiet in that moment and stayed that way. I did the wrong things there, and I know you'll forgive me, but it's been hard to forgive myself. You came to me with the truest thing anybody ever said about that boy. 6 years old, the only words you had, and I taught you it couldn't be said. That October the creek came up, you went down to the causeway, you who kept every rule we ever gave you, the one law of the house, that causeway. I never did find out how you came to be down there. Never asked. That's another one. I never asked. And you went in, and he got you out. Alan Dowd shouting fetched me. The Bartons saw the finish. A boy of 8 coming up the bank with you under one arm. Laid you on the grass. Rolled you on your side. Stepped back to give you air. You brought up half the creek, and you were blue round the mouth. And you were alive. That's the fact that outranks every other fact in this. I've never said otherwise, not once. I had to stop the machine again. Back now. 2 small things about that day. Then I'll leave it alone. I'm not putting them next to each other, mind you. I'm only saying them. Best day of his life, the town reckoned. Worst of mine. Never worked out how to sit those together. He'd been on the back step by himself. I went past him with the washing basket 4 minutes before Alan started shouting. It's 600 yards to that water. Fence, stile, paspalum to your waist. I've walked it in my head 100 times. A quick 8-year-old does it. Just. I took him back to the welfare in the November, 5 weeks after he saved your life. There, I've said it. 2 versions. The grand version, I sensed what the whole country now knows. No, I was a housewife, not a prophet. The true version's smaller. My girl had stopped singing and started wetting the bed. My house had arranged itself around a boy in ways I could feel and couldn't describe. I was frightened, and I had nothing to show anybody, and I wanted it to stop. Say that out loud in that office. It comes out as spite. A woman gone sour on the boy who saved her daughter, needing a reason. And if I'd told the welfare girl about you, she'd have asked what he'd done to you. And the answer was nothing. He'd saved your life. He'd been kind to you. It was all anybody ever saw him be. So she put her biro on the form and asked what had happened. And I said the one sentence I could defend. I don't think I'm managing. It's me. I'm not up to it. Went down without a wobble. She was very kind about it. There's a box on the form. Health of the carer. That's the box. The only thing I ever gave them to write down was me. And the town thought what you'd expect. The woman who returned the boy who saved her daughter. I let them think it. Their version and the form's version agreed with each other, at least. I told your father the welfare thought it best. He never asked me one question. Not then, not in 26 years. And I've never known if that was trust or the opposite. Didn't ask that either. The house went back to how it had been, which I'd once have called normal, and now knew to call quiet. He packed his own bag, stripped his own bed, put the sheets through the machine, nobody asked him to, shook Kevin's hand, thanked your father for the soldering, said something to you in the hallway I didn't catch, and you stood looking at the flywire a good while after it banged. At the car, he turned around, nothing on his face I could make anything of. The town said, after how brave he was about it, he said, "You'll be right, Marge." You were singing again in the new year. I do remember that, because your father turned the wireless off one night to hear you better. Made out he hadn't. 15 years later, I'd see his name in the paper. On the TV, too. Little flush of it. We had him, you know. And if something turned over underneath, well, a famous man who once ate at your table. Everybody feels strange about that. The trial, too, at first. I watched it like everybody watched it. Mostly I felt sorry. The way you do when a story you were once inside goes wrong. Then his daughter was in the box. And the prosecutor summed it up. I can't quote him. It was close to this, that the pattern over 30 years was of things done for this man by people who could each truthfully say he never asked them to. And people didn't think that it made any sense, and I'm sure it wouldn't have made any to me either if I hadn't had him for 9 months. Because in 1975, at my own kitchen table, I'd been one of them, and your grandmother, and your father, filling the little gaps around a 6-year-old girl, and every one of us could have truthfully said, the boy never asked us to. So I won't tell you what he is. The court did some of that. Then the jail lost him. The papers do it daily. None of them needed me. What I know is small and mine. I had the easiest child I ever raised. 9 months. The whole house arranged itself around him, quiet as you like. I have suspicions about that day you almost dies. I also think he might have had a hand in that young boy's death at the school. And you summed up my concerns in one sentence when you were 6. And you were right.